security guard grabbed Keanu Reeves by the arm and accused him of stealing from other customers. The bank manager called him a thief. They threatened to call the police. What they didn't know was that this man in the old hoodie owned 51% of the entire bank. He was their boss. He signed their paychecks, and he'd just seen everything. But here's the part that'll shock you. He didn't fire them. What he did instead changed everything. This is the story of the day Keanu walked into his own bank and discovered the ugly truth hiding behind the polished marble and friendly smiles. The morning began like any normal Tuesday in downtown Los Angeles. Traffic moved slowly, coffee shops filled up, people hurried to work with their heads down and their phones in their hands. Keanu Reeves stood outside Pacific Trust Bank, looking up at the glass building that rose 15 floors into the cloudy sky. He had owned 51% of this bank for 3 years. 3 years of reports, meetings, and numbers on spreadsheets. But he had never walked through these doors like a normal customer. He looked down at what he was wearing, a faded gray hoodie, old jeans with a hole in one knee, worn sneakers he had owned for 5 years, a beat-up backpack on one shoulder. He looked like someone who had just gotten out of bed. That was the point. Catherine Wells, the CEO he had hired to run the bank, had been sending him worrying reports for months. Customer complaints were up 31%. People were leaving. Not because of fees or interest rates. They were leaving because of how they were treated. "I need to see it myself," Keanu had told her on the phone last week. "Come by any time," Catherine had said. "I'll set up a full tour." "No," Keanu said. "I need to see it the way a normal person sees it." And that was why he was standing here now, dressed like someone who clearly did not own a bank. He pushed through the spinning doors. The lobby hit him with the smell of money, new carpet, leather chairs, that sharp, clean smell from people cleaning everything twice a day. Marble floors shined under the lights. Big plants stood in the corners. Everything screamed wealth and success. A few people waited in line at the teller windows. Others sat in chairs filling out forms. A security guard stood by the door, arms crossed, watching everyone who came in. Keanu joined the line. The woman in front of him wore a business suit and held her phone like she was afraid to put it down. The man behind him kept sighing and checking his watch every 10 seconds. Nobody really looked at Keanu, or they looked at him and then quickly looked away. His clothes did not belong here. He could feel their judgment like a heavy weight. The line moved slowly. Keanu watched the tellers work. He started to notice things. An older man walked up to the counter. He wore work clothes, paint on his pants, dirt under his nails. The teller barely smiled at him. She handled his deposit. Fast, her face empty. No small talk, no warmth, just business. 2 minutes later, a woman in expensive clothes stepped up to the next window. The teller's face changed right away. Big smile, friendly voice. "How are you today, Mrs. Patterson? How's your husband? Is your daughter still loving Princeton?" Keanu clenched his jaw. He moved closer in line. Now he could hear more. "I need to make a withdrawal," an elderly woman said. Her voice was soft and unsure. The teller, a young man named Derek, barely looked at her. "Amount? $50, please." Derek sighed, a real sigh, like she had asked him to do something terrible. He processed the request in silence, then pushed the money across the counter without a word. The woman took it and whispered, "Thank you." Derek was already looking past her at the next person. Keanu's hands curled into fists inside his hoodie. Finally, it was his turn. He stepped up to the window where a woman named Jessica sat. She looked up at him, and her smile died before it fully appeared. Her eyes moved from his face to his hoodie to his old sneakers and back. "Can I help you?" she said. The words were polite. The tone was not. Cold. Careful. "I'd like to make a withdrawal, please." Keanu slid his driver's license and a slip of paper across the counter. On the slip he had written $15,000. Jessica picked it up. Her eyes went wide. She looked at the number, then at Keanu, then back at the number. $15,000? That's right. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned and whispered to the teller next to her. The other teller looked at Keanu. Then they both whispered together. Keanu knew what they were thinking. They didn't believe him. They thought it was a scam, or a mistake, or something illegal. Jessica picked up the phone and spoke quietly. Then she turned back with a tight smile. "Sir, the manager would like to speak with you about this. If you could. Wait a moment." "Is there a problem?" "Just a routine security check. Please sit over there." She pointed to a row of chairs by the wall. Keanu looked at the chairs, then back at her. "I have valid ID. I have money in my account. Why do I need to talk to a manager?" Her smile tightened more. "Bank policy, sir. For large withdrawals, we verify certain things." "How large is large?" "That's up to the manager." Keanu knew that was not true. He had read every page of the rulebook. There was no automatic manager review for $15,000, not even close. But he nodded and walked over to the chairs. He sat down and watched. 5 minutes later, a well-dressed woman approached one of the tellers. She asked to withdraw $20,000. The teller smiled, processed it immediately, counted out the cash, and wished her a wonderful day. No manager, no security check, no waiting. Keanu pulled his phone out and started recording. Not video, just audio. He slipped the phone back in his pocket, microphone pointing out. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Finally, a man in an expensive suit walked out from the back offices. Richard Porter. Keanu recognized him from his employee file. Branch manager, 5 years with Pacific Trust, excellent performance reviews, bonuses every year. Richard approached Keanu with the kind of smile people use when they're about to deliver bad news. "Sir, I'm Richard Porter, the branch manager. Could you come with me, please?" Keanu stood. "Is there a problem with my withdrawal?" "Let's discuss it in private." Richard gestured toward the offices. "I'd rather discuss it here." Richard's smile tightened. "I'm afraid I have to insist. Bank policy." They walked back to a small office. Richard closed the door and sat behind his desk. He didn't invite Keanu to sit. "So," Richard said, picking up the withdrawal slip, $15,000. That's quite a bit of cash. I need it. May I ask what for?" "It's my money. I don't need to explain what I plan to do with it." Richard leaned back in his chair. "Here's the thing, Mr. He glanced at the driver's license. "Mr. Reeves, we have a responsibility to protect our customers. Large cash withdrawals can be a red flag for various issues: fraud, theft, money laundering." "You think I'm laundering money?" "I'm saying we need to verify a few things. How long have you had an account with us?" 3 years. "And this is your first large withdrawal?" "I've never needed to take out this much before." Richard nodded slowly. His eyes kept drifting to Keanu's hoodie, his worn sneakers. "Where do you work, Mr. Reeves?" "I'm in the film industry." "As what?" Keanu paused. "I'm an actor." Richard's eyebrows went up. Then he actually laughed, a short, sharp sound. "An actor, right. And I'm a brain surgeon." He shook his head. "Look, I don't know what's really going on here, but I'm not authorizing this withdrawal. I think you should leave." "You're refusing to give me my own money?" "I'm protecting the integrity of this bank." "Based on what?" "I've provided proper identification. I have the funds. What's the actual problem?" Richard leaned forward. "You want me to be honest? Fine. I've been doing this job for 5 years. I know who belongs in a place like Pacific Trust and who doesn't. And looking at you," he gestured at Keanu's clothes, "you don't belong here." The words hung in the air. Keanu's voice stayed calm. "You're denying me access to my money because of how I'm dressed. I'm denying you because something doesn't add up. People who have $15,000 in the bank don't dress like they found their clothes in a dumpster. So it's a dress code. It's reality. Now I'm going to have to ask you to leave. If you refuse, I'll call security." Keanu stood. "You're making a mistake. The only mistake would be letting you walk out of here with money that probably isn't yours." Richard picked up his phone. "Security? I need you in my office." The door opened. The security guard from the lobby walked in. His name tag said Frank Chen. He was young, maybe 25, ex-military from the way he carried himself. "Frank, please escort this gentleman out of the building." Frank looked at Keanu, then at Richard. "Sir, has he done something wrong?" "He's attempted to make a fraudulent withdrawal. I want him removed from the premises." "I haven't done anything fraudulent," Keanu said quietly. "I asked to withdraw my own money." Frank hesitated. There was something in this guy's eyes, something calm and steady that didn't match what Richard was saying. "Frank," Richard's voice went hard, "I gave you an order." Frank's training kicked in. Orders were orders. "Sir, I need you to come with me. I'm not leaving until I get my money. Then I'll have to remove you." Keanu looked at Frank, really looked at him, saw a young man trying to do his job, trying to follow orders, not a bad person, just someone stuck in a bad situation. "All right," Keanu said, "I'll go. But I'm calling the police myself. I want to file a complaint." Richard laughed. "Go ahead. Tell them you tried to steal $15,000 and got caught." "I didn't try to steal anything." "Your word against mine." Richard stood up. "Frank, make sure he doesn't come back." Frank put a hand on Keanu's arm, not rough, but firm. "This way, sir." They walked through the lobby. Every customer, every teller, every employee watched them, Keanu being escorted out like a criminal. Whispers followed them. "Is that guy a thief? I heard he tried to steal money. Look at how he's dressed. They reached the front doors. Frank pushed them open and guided Keanu outside onto the sidewalk. Once they were out, Frank let go of his arm. "Look, man, I don't know what happened in there, but you should probably just go. Don't come back." "I have an account here." "Then use a different branch. Mr. Porter doesn't forget people. You come back, it'll be worse." Keanu looked at Frank. "How long have you worked here?" 3 months. "Why?" "You seem like a good guy. You don't want to be part of what's happening in there." Frank frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Open your eyes. Look at how people are treated. Really look." "I just do my job." "Sometimes doing your job means doing the wrong thing." Frank's jaw tightened. "You need to leave. Now." Keanu nodded slowly. He walked away down the sidewalk, but he didn't go far, just around the corner, out of sight. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Catherine, it's me. I just got thrown out of our downtown branch." There was a pause on the other end. "What?" "They accused me of fraud, called security, escorted me out." "Who did?" "Branch manager, Richard Porter." Another pause, longer this time. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. Bring the files, everything we have on him." "Keanu, what are you going to do?" "What I should have done months ago." He ended the call and stood there on the sidewalk, thinking about what he'd just seen. The elderly woman treated like garbage. The man in work clothes processed like he was an inconvenience. The cold efficiency reserved for people who didn't look wealthy enough. This wasn't just about him getting kicked out. This was systematic. This was a culture. And it had his name on it. His phone buzzed. "Catherine. I'm pulling into the garage. Meet me in the lobby in 5 minutes." Keanu walked back toward the bank. This time, he wasn't going in alone. Catherine Wells walked through the revolving doors of Pacific Trust Bank like she owned the place, which, in a way, she did. As CEO, she ran the entire operation, 200 branches, 15,000 employees, billions in assets. She wore a black suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her heels clicked on the marble floor with sharp, purposeful sounds. Her assistant, Marcus, followed 2 steps behind, carrying a leather briefcase. Behind them came Keanu, still in his hoodie and jeans, still looking like he'd wandered in off the street. The lobby went quiet. People recognized Catherine. They'd seen her picture in company memos in the lobby directory on the website. Jessica, the teller who'd started this whole thing, went pale. Derek stopped mid-transaction and stared. Richard Porter stepped out of his office, saw Catherine, and his confident smile appeared. He walked over with his hand extended. "Ms. Wells, what a surprise. If I'd known you were coming, I would have prepared." Catherine walked past him like he didn't exist. She went straight to Keanu. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." She turned to face the lobby. Her voice carried to every corner of the room. "I need everyone's attention, right now." Conversations died. Phones were lowered. Every employee in sight turned to look. "This man," Catherine gestured to Keanu, "was asked to leave this branch 30 minutes ago. He was accused of attempting fraud. He was escorted out by security. Does anyone want to explain to me why that happened?" Richard's smile was slipping. "Ms. Wells, there was a misunderstanding. I'm not talking to you yet." Catherine's voice could cut glass. "Jessica, you were the teller who started this. Explain." Jessica looked like she might throw up. He wanted to withdraw $15,000. I followed protocol. Large withdrawals require manager approval." "Since when?" I thought it was policy." "Show me the policy." I can't. "Because it doesn't exist. There is no policy requiring manager approval for $15,000. Try again." Jessica's eyes dropped to the floor. He looked. "I thought maybe." "You thought what?" Silence. Catherine turned to Richard. "What about you? Why did you deny the withdrawal?" Richard straightened his tie. "I had concerns about the legitimacy of the transaction." "Based on what evidence?" "Based on my professional judgment." "Your professional judgment?" Catherine nodded slowly. "And what did your professional judgment tell you exactly?" "That someone dressed like that probably doesn't have $15,000 in their account." The lobby went completely silent. Several employees sucked in sharp breaths. Catherine let the words hang there for a long moment. "Someone dressed like that. I want to be absolutely clear. You denied a customer access to his own money because of his clothes." Richard's face was getting red. "It's more complicated than that." "No, it's really not. Frank," she turned to the security guard, "you escorted this man out. Did he resist? Did he become violent? Did he threaten anyone?" Frank shook his head. "No, ma'am. He was polite the whole time." "But you removed him anyway." "Mr. Porter told me to." "And you didn't question that order?" Frank hesitated. No, ma'am." Catherine pulled out her phone and tapped something. Then she held it up so everyone could see the screen. It was Keanu's employee profile. His photo, his title. Majority owner, 51% shareholder, chairman of the board. The silence in the lobby became absolute. Jessica made a small sound, like all the air had left her body. Richard's face went from red to white in about 3 seconds. Derek, the teller who'd been so rude to the elderly woman, took a step backward. "This is Keanu Reeves," Catherine said. "Some of you might recognize him as an actor. What you apparently don't know is that he owns this bank. He owns 51% of Pacific Trust. Every policy, every procedure, every paycheck you receive exists because he invested his money to build this company." She walked slowly through the lobby, looking at faces. "He came here this morning to see how we treat our customers, and what he found was discrimination, prejudice, staff members who judge people based on their clothes, their appearance, their perceived wealth, who provide excellent service to people who look rich and treat everyone else like garbage." Richard found his voice. "Ms. Wells, with all due respect, I didn't know." "That's the point!" Catherine's voice cracked like a whip. "You didn't know, and because you didn't know he was the owner, you felt free to treat him terribly. You denied him access to his own money. You called him a fraud. You had him physically removed from the building." She walked right up to Richard. "If you'd known who he was, you would have rolled out a red carpet. You would have offered him champagne. You would have processed his withdrawal with a smile and thanked him for his business. But because he looked poor, you threw him out. Do you understand what that tells me about how you run this branch?" Richard opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Catherine turned back to the assembled employees. "I want everyone who witnessed what happened this morning to ask yourselves a question. Did you speak up? When you saw a customer being treated unfairly, did you say something, or did you stay quiet because it was easier?" Nobody answered. "Here's what's going to happen," Catherine continued. "Mr. Porter, you're suspended immediately, pending a full investigation into how you run this branch. Jessica, Derek, you're both suspended as well. Frank, you're on probation. I want detailed written statements from all of you about what happened this morning and about every other incident of discrimination you've witnessed or participated in." Richard's face had gone from white to gray. "You can't do this. I have a contract. I have rights. And I have documentation of civil rights violations. Which do you think matters more?" She pulled a folder from Marcus's briefcase and tossed it onto the nearest desk. It landed with a heavy thud. 6 months of customer complaints, all from this branch, all following the same pattern. Working-class customers report being treated poorly, being made to wait, being questioned about their transactions, being made to feel unwelcome. Meanwhile, wealthy customers breeze through with no issues. She opened the folder and pulled out a sheet. Mrs. Rodriguez, age 73, tried to deposit her Social Security check. The teller questioned whether the check was real, made her wait 45 minutes for verification. Mrs. Rodriguez has banked here for 12 years. Another sheet. James Peterson, construction worker, wanted to open a savings account, was told this bank might not be the best fit for his needs. Translation. "We don't want your kind here." Another. Sarah Chen, single mother, asked about a small business loan, was laughed at, actually laughed at by a loan officer who told her she should be more realistic. Catherine's hands were shaking now, not with fear, with rage. "These are people who trusted us, who came to us for help, and you humiliated them." She closed the folder. "This ends today. Not just the suspensions, the entire culture. I'm bringing in a consulting firm to review every policy, every procedure, every employee at this branch. Anyone who can't treat every customer with basic dignity will find work elsewhere." Richard tried one more time. "Ms. Wells, I've been with this company for 5 years. My performance reviews have all been excellent. My numbers are..." "Your numbers are good because you drove away anyone who didn't meet your personal standard of wealth. You cherry-picked rich clients and ignored everyone else. That's not performance, that's discrimination." She turned to Keanu. "Is there anything you'd like to add?" Keanu had been silent through all of this, just watching, listening. Now he stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but everyone heard every word. "I didn't come here this morning to fire anyone. I came to understand a problem. Now I understand it." He looked at Richard. "You didn't deny my withdrawal because you thought I was a criminal. You denied it because you thought I was poor. And in your mind, poor people don't deserve the same service as rich people." Richard started to protest. Keanu held up a hand. "I've been poor, really poor. I've lived in my car. I've had $200 in my bank account and known I had to make it last 3 weeks. I've walked into places and felt people judge me based on my clothes. It's humiliating. It makes you feel like you're less than human." He walked closer to Richard. Money doesn't make you better than anyone. Success doesn't give you the right to look down on people. Every person who walks through these doors deserves respect. Not because they might be rich, not because they might be secretly important, but because they're human beings." He paused. "You want to know the saddest part? I built this bank specifically to be different, to be a place where everyone felt welcome, where a construction worker got the same smile as a CEO, where a grandmother depositing her Social Security check was treated with the same care as someone depositing $1 million inheritance." He looked around the lobby. "I failed. I stayed away too long. I trusted the wrong people. And because of that, hundreds of customers have been hurt." He turned back to Richard. "You're not fired because you didn't recognize me. You're fired because of how you treated someone you thought couldn't fight back. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Richard's eyes were wet now. The reality of what he'd lost was starting to sink in. "Please. I have a mortgage. I have kids in college. I need this job." "You should have thought about that before you made other people feel worthless." Keanu pulled out his phone. He played a recording, his own voice. "It's my money. I don't need to explain what I plan to do with it." Then Richard's voice. "People who have $15,000 in the bank don't dress like they found their clothes in a dumpster." The recording kept going. Every insulting word, every condescending tone, all of it captured. "I'm giving this to our legal team," Keanu said, "along with the 6 months of complaints Catherine mentioned. If any of the affected customers want to pursue legal action, they'll have everything they need." He looked at Frank. The young security guard looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Frank, you made a mistake. You followed an order without questioning it, but I saw your face when you were escorting me out. You weren't sure. You had doubts. That tells me you're not like them. You've got 3 months to prove it." Frank nodded, not trusting his voice. Keanu turned to the rest of the employees. "I'm going to be here more often, not as the owner, as a customer. I'll be watching how you treat people, how you talk to them, whether you offer the same smile to everyone or just to people who look wealthy. And if I see what I saw this morning, I won't need Catherine to fire you. You'll fire yourselves through your own behavior." He started walking toward the exit, then he stopped and turned back. "One more thing. Tomorrow morning, I want every employee at this branch in the conference room at 9 a.m. Attendance is mandatory. We're going to have a conversation about what this bank stands for, about what I expect, and about what happens to people who forget that customers are human beings, not ATM machines." Catherine fell into step beside him as they walked out. The revolving doors spun, and they were gone. Behind them, the lobby remained frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Richard stood alone in the middle of the floor, his expensive suit suddenly feeling too tight, his confident smile completely gone. He'd spent 5 years building his career, building his reputation, and he'd destroyed it all in 30 minutes because he couldn't see past a worn hoodie. Jessica sat at her teller station with tears running down her face. She'd let Richard's attitude infect her own. She'd made assumptions based on appearances, and now her job hung by a thread. Derek was thinking about all the customers he'd been rude to. All the working-class people he'd rushed through their transactions. All the elderly folks he'd made feel like burdens. It was like seeing himself clearly for the first time. He didn't like what he saw. And Frank stood by the door, remembering the look in Keanu's eyes, that calm certainty, that quiet strength. He'd seen that look before, in commanding officers he'd respected, in teachers who'd changed his life, in his own father, the kind of look that said, "I know who I am. Do you?" Frank pulled out his phone and opened a text to his little brother, who was starting college in the fall. "Just learned an important lesson," he typed. "Never judge people by their clothes. You never know who you're dealing with." He hesitated, then added, "And even if they're not rich or famous, they still deserve respect. That's just being human." He hit send and looked around the lobby, at his coworkers who were slowly starting to move again, to whisper, to process what had just happened. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. there was going to be a meeting. And Frank had a feeling that nothing at Pacific Trust Bank was ever going to be the same. The next morning, the conference room on the 3rd floor was packed. Every employee from the downtown branch sat in chairs arranged in rows, branch manager's position, empty. Richard Porter was at home, suspended, probably updating his resume. Catherine stood at the front of the room with a laptop and a projector. Keanu sat off to the side, still in regular clothes, jeans and a t-shirt today, nothing fancy. At exactly 9 a.m., Catherine started. "Thank you all for being here. I know many of you are nervous. Some of you are probably scared. That's understandable. But this meeting isn't about punishment, it's about change. She clicked a button. The projector showed an image, a graph with two lines, one going up, one going down. This is Pacific Trust Bank over the past 2 years. The red line is customer growth. The blue line is customer satisfaction. Notice something? The red line was climbing, steadily. More customers every quarter. The blue line was dropping like a stone. We're growing, Catherine said, but our customers are miserable. They hate banking with us. They leave bad reviews. They tell their friends to go elsewhere. And this branch right here has the worst satisfaction scores in our entire system. She let that sink in. So I started digging. I looked at customer complaints. I reviewed transaction records. I even hired secret shoppers to visit branches and report on their experiences. And what I found was troubling. Another click. The screen showed comments from customer surveys. I felt judged based on my clothes. The teller treated me like I was bothering her. I saw them smile at the person before me, but when it was my turn, their face went blank. I asked a simple question and they made me feel stupid. Catherine turned to face the room. These are your customers, people who trusted you with their money, and this is how they feel after interacting with you. Uncomfortable shifting in the seats. Some employees looked ashamed, others defensive. Now, I could fire everyone and start over, but that won't fix the problem. Because the problem isn't individual people. It's the culture. It's the unspoken rules about who deserves good service and who doesn't. It's the assumption that wealthy customers matter more than working-class customers. She paused. Who taught you that? Silence. I'm serious. I want to know. Did someone explicitly tell you to treat poor people badly? Did Richard Porter hand out a memo saying, only smile at people wearing designer clothes? Jessica raised her hand. No, but what? But we saw how he acted, how he treated different customers, and we followed his example. Catherine nodded. That's how culture works. It's not written down. It's demonstrated. And when leadership demonstrates that some people matter more than others, employees pick up on that. She clicked to the next slide. Keanu's face, a professional photo from a board meeting. This is Keanu Reeves. You all know who he is now. Majority owner, chairman, the person who literally owns this bank. When he walked in yesterday, how did you treat him? More uncomfortable silence. Jessica, you made him wait while you called Richard. Derek, you whispered to Jessica about how suspicious he looked. Frank, you physically removed him from the building. And Richard, she shook her head. Richard told him he didn't belong here. She turned off the projector. Here's my question. If Keanu had walked in wearing an Armani suit and a Rolex, would any of that have happened? Heads shook no. Exactly. You would have fallen over yourselves to help him, because you would have assumed he was important, that he deserved your best service. But because he wore a hoodie, you assumed he was nobody. Catherine walked between the rows of chairs. That's the problem. You're deciding who deserves respect based on appearances, based on wealth, based on whether someone can benefit you personally. And that's not just bad business. It's morally wrong. She stopped in front of a young teller named Maria. Maria, why did you become a banker? Maria looked startled. I wanted to help people manage their money. Help people, not help rich people, just people, right? Right. Catherine moved to another employee. Tom, you're a loan officer. Why did you choose this career? My dad lost our house when I was a kid because he couldn't get a fair loan. I wanted to make sure other people didn't go through that. So you became a loan officer to help people who are struggling, people who need financial support, not people who already have everything, correct? Tom nodded slowly. Catherine returned to the front of the room. Every single person in this room got into banking because they wanted to help people. Somewhere along the way, you forgot that. You started seeing customers as transactions instead of human beings, as numbers instead of people with families and hopes and struggles. She looked directly at them. I need you to remember why you started. I need you to remember that the elderly woman depositing her Social Security check is somebody's grandmother. The construction worker opening a savings account is trying to build a better future for his kids. The single mom asking about a loan is fighting to keep her small business alive. These people aren't bothering you. They're trusting you. That's a privilege, and you're treating it like a burden. Keanu stood up. He hadn't said anything yet. Now everyone turned to look at him. He walked to the front slowly. When he spoke, his voice was calm but firm. I'm not going to give you a long speech about treating people with respect. You already know you should. Your parents taught you that when you were 5 years old. What I want to talk about is why you forgot. He looked around the room. I've been famous for a long time, and I've learned something interesting. When people recognize me, they treat me completely differently than when they don't. When they know I'm Keanu Reeves, the actor, I get smiled at. Doors get held open. People ask for autographs and selfies. They're excited and friendly. But when they don't recognize me, when I'm just another guy in old clothes, I'm invisible. Or worse, I'm suspicious. People assume I'm lost or poor or up to something. He pulled a chair forward and sat on the edge of it. That tells me something sad about human nature. We treat people well when we think they can do something for us, when they're famous or powerful or wealthy. But when we think they're nobody, we don't even try. Yesterday, I experienced that in my own bank, the bank I built specifically to be different, to be a place where everyone felt valued, and it hurt. Not because you didn't recognize me, but because you felt free to treat me badly once you decided I was unimportant. He looked at Jessica. You didn't deny my withdrawal because you thought I was a criminal. You denied it because you thought I was poor. And in your mind, poor people trying to access large amounts of cash must be up to something. Jessica's eyes were red. Richard told me I didn't belong here, that people who dress like me don't have money. He judged my bank account based on my shoes. Think about that. My shoes determined whether I could access my own money. He stood up. I want to tell you something about those shoes. I bought them 5 years ago. They were on sale for $40. I've worn them to movie sets, to restaurants, to business meetings, to my own bank. They're comfortable. They fit well. And they remind me of a time in my life when $40 was a big purchase. I have closets full of expensive clothes. I could wear a different designer suit every day for a year. But I choose to dress like this because it keeps me grounded. It reminds me that I'm just a person, that I'm not better than anyone else. He walked through the rows of employees. Money is temporary. Fame is temporary. The only thing that lasts is how you treat people. And I've learned that the people who deserve the most respect are often the ones who get the least. The elderly woman on a fixed income who's still trying to save a few dollars. The immigrant working 3 jobs to send money back home. The young family scraping by, trying to build something better. These people are heroes. They're fighting battles you can't see. And when they come into this bank, they deserve to be treated like heroes. Not because they might secretly be rich, not because they might be famous in disguise, but because they're human beings trying their best. He stopped and turned to face everyone. I'm making some changes. First, we're eliminating VIP services. No more express lanes for premium accounts. No more special treatment for high-balance customers. Everyone gets the same service. Everyone. Murmurs rippled through the room. Second, we're implementing mystery shopper programs. Random people will come in to test how you treat customers. You won't know who they are. Some will look wealthy, some will look poor, and I'll be reading every single report. Third, customer satisfaction is now part of your performance review. Not just transaction volume, not just sales numbers, how customers feel after interacting with you. If your satisfaction scores are low, your job is at risk. I don't care how many accounts you open if everyone who meets you leaves feeling terrible. He sat back down. I'm not going to fire everyone. That would be easy, but it wouldn't fix anything. Instead, I'm giving you a chance to change, to remember why you got into this business, to remember that banking isn't about buildings and accounts and numbers. It's about people, helping people, all people. But if you can't make that change, if you keep judging customers based on their clothes or their perceived wealth, then you don't belong at Pacific Trust, and you'll be asked to leave. Catherine stepped forward again. We're bringing in trainers to help with this transition. You'll attend workshops on unconscious bias, on customer service, on seeing people as individuals instead of categories. This is mandatory. If you miss a session, you're fired. If you fail to participate, you're fired. This is non-negotiable. She pulled out a stack of papers. I'm also reinstating every customer who left us in the past 6 months. I'm personally calling them to apologize for how they were treated, and I'm offering them incentives to come back and give us another chance. Some of them will tell me where to go. I don't blame them. But some might be willing to forgive us, to see if we've actually changed, and when they walk back through those doors, they better be treated like royalty, because they're giving us a gift we don't deserve. A second chance. She looked at her watch. This meeting is over. You have the rest of the day to think about whether you want to be part of this change. Tomorrow we start training. Show up ready to learn, or don't show up at all. People started filing out. Slowly, quietly, the weight of what they'd heard pressing down on them. Frank waited until everyone else had left. Then he approached Keanu. Sir, can I ask you something? Keanu nodded. Yesterday when you told me to open my eyes, to really look at how people are treated, I've been thinking about that all night. And? And you're right. I saw things. Small things. But I ignored them because it wasn't my job to get involved. I was just security. Just following orders. Keanu waited. But that's not good enough, is it? Just following orders doesn't excuse anything. No, it doesn't. Frank nodded slowly. I want to do better. I want to be the kind of person who speaks up when something's wrong, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it might cost me. That's good. But wanting it isn't enough. You have to actually do it. I know. That's the scary part. Keanu smiled. If it wasn't scary, everyone would do it. The fact that it's hard is what makes it worthwhile. Frank stood up straighter. Thank you for not firing me. Thank you for being willing to change. After Frank left, Catherine approached Keanu. That was good. The speech, the new policies, I think it might actually work. Or it might fail completely. Some of these people have been thinking this way for years. Changing that won't happen overnight. But we have to try. Yes, we have to try. Catherine hesitated. Can I ask you something? Why didn't you just fire everyone, start fresh with new employees? Keanu looked out the window at the city below. Because firing them doesn't teach them anything. They just go to another bank and treat customers the same way. At least this way, if they change, it might actually mean something. And if they don't change, then they fire themselves. 3 months later, Keanu walked into Pacific. Trust Bank again. Same hoodie, same jeans, same worn sneakers. The difference was immediate. The security guard at the door smiled at him, not because he recognized Keanu, just a genuine smile of greeting. Good morning, sir. Welcome to Pacific Trust. Keanu smiled back. Good morning. He joined the line at the teller windows. While he waited, he watched. An elderly man approached the counter. The teller greeted him warmly, asked about his day, made small talk while processing his transaction, thanked him sincerely for his business. A woman in work clothes came to the next window. The teller gave her the same warm smile, the same friendly greeting. No difference. Keanu's turn came. A new teller, someone he didn't recognize. Young woman, maybe mid-20s. Good morning. How can I help you today? I'd like to make a withdrawal, please. $2,000. Absolutely. Let me get that processed for you. She took his ID and withdrawal slip, typed efficiently, smiled the whole time. This'll just take a moment. No suspicious looks, no whispered conversations, no calling the manager. She counted out the cash carefully, then slid it across the counter. $2,000. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, thank you. You've been great. Thank you for banking with us. Have a wonderful day. Keanu took the money and walked toward the exit. As he passed the offices, he saw Catherine through the glass. She was on the phone, but she caught his eye and gave him a thumbs up. He gave her a small nod and kept walking. Outside, he stood on the sidewalk for a moment. The morning sun was warm on his face. Traffic hummed by. The city moved around him, full of people going about their lives. He thought about Richard Porter, who'd found a new job at a smaller bank. Last Keanu heard, Richard was struggling. Apparently his reputation had followed him. He thought about Jessica, who'd asked to be transferred to a different branch. A fresh start. She'd sent Keanu an email apologizing for her behavior. He'd replied with 2 words: show growth. He thought about Derek, who'd quit entirely. Decided banking wasn't for him. Last anyone knew, he was working at his family's restaurant. Maybe that was better for everyone. And he thought about Frank, who was still there, still working security, but different now. Keanu had heard from Catherine that Frank had filed 3 separate reports about staff members treating customers poorly. 2 of those staff members had been fired. The 3rd had shaped up immediately. That was the kind of change that mattered. Keanu's phone buzzed, a text from Catherine. Satisfaction scores are up 47% at the downtown branch. Customer retention is improving. Whatever you did, it's working. He typed back, whatever we did, this is on both of us. Fair. Lunch next week? I want to talk about rolling out these changes to other branches. Sure, but I'm picking the place, and I'm paying. Deal. Keanu pocketed his base phone and started walking. He had errands to run, groceries to buy, a normal day doing normal things. Nobody on the street recognized him. Or if they did, they didn't bother him. He was just another person in old clothes walking through downtown LA. And that was exactly how he liked it. 6 months after the incident, Pacific Trust Bank held its annual shareholders meeting. The big conference room at headquarters was packed with investors, board members, analysts. Keanu sat at the head of the table. He'd worn a suit for this. It felt weird after months of hoodies and jeans, but some occasions required it. Catherine presented the quarterly results. Revenue was up, customer acquisition was strong, but more importantly, satisfaction scores had climbed across the board. The changes we implemented at the downtown branch are now standard across all locations, Catherine explained. No more VIP lanes, no more preferential treatment based on account balance. Every customer gets the same level of service. One of the investors raised his hand. And how has that affected our high net worth clients? Aren't they upset about losing their special status? Some left, Catherine admitted. About 8% of our premium accounts closed, but we gained 3 times that number in new customers who'd avoided us before because they didn't feel welcome. She clicked to the next slide, customer testimonials. I used to bank at Pacific Trust but left because I always felt judged. When I heard about the changes, I decided to give them another chance. I'm so glad I did. The difference is night and day. I'm a teacher. I don't make a lot of money. At my old bank, I felt like they were doing me a favor by letting me have an account. At Pacific Trust, they treat me like I matter. I recommended Pacific Trust to everyone I know, not because of interest rates or fees, because of how they make me feel, like a person, not a number. Catherine closed her laptop. We're proving that you don't have to choose between profitability and human decency. You can have both. You just have to care about both. After the meeting, investors approached Keanu with congratulations. Good job. Well done. Impressive turnaround. One older gentleman stayed behind after everyone else left. Robert Chen. He'd been on the board since the beginning. Keanu, can I ask you something? Of course. When you walked into that branch 6 months ago, you could have revealed who you were immediately. Could have gotten Richard fired on the spot. Why didn't you? Keanu thought about it. Because if I'd revealed myself right away, I wouldn't have seen what I needed to see. I wouldn't have experienced what our customers experience, and I wouldn't have understood how deep the problem went. But it must have been humiliating, being treated that way. It was. But I've been humiliated before. I survived. What bothered me more was knowing that other people go through that every day, and they don't have the power to change it. They can't walk back in and fire everyone. They just have to accept being treated poorly and move on. Robert nodded slowly. You've changed this bank. You know that, right? Not just the policies, the whole philosophy. Catherine changed it. I just pointed out the problem. You did more than that. You showed everyone that the person they think doesn't matter might be the most important person in the room. That's a lesson that extends far beyond banking. Keanu smiled. I hope so, because people need to learn it. 1 year after the incident, Keanu received a letter. Handwritten, no return address. He opened it at home, curious. Dear Mr. Reeves, you don't know me. My name is Margaret Rodriguez. I'm the 73-year-old woman who tried to deposit a Social Security check at your bank last year. The teller didn't believe it was real. Made me wait almost an hour while they verified it. I left crying that day. Felt like I'd done something wrong, even though I hadn't. I closed my account the next week, swore I'd never go back. Then I heard about what happened to you, how you got treated the same way, how you changed everything. My neighbor convinced me to try Pacific Trust again. I didn't want to. But she said things were different now. She was right. The teller who helped me was named Maria. She was kind, patient. She didn't make me feel old or stupid or like I was wasting her time. She just helped me. I started crying again, but this time it was because someone finally treated me like I mattered. I'm writing to say thank you. Thank you for caring enough to fix what was broken. Thank you for remembering that old ladies with small Social Security checks are people too. You didn't have to do any of this. You could have just fired everyone and forgotten about it. But you didn't. You actually cared. That means everything. Sincerely, Margaret Rodriguez P.S. I bake cookies for my church every Sunday. Next time you're at the downtown branch, there's a box waiting for you at the counter. Chocolate chip. I hope you like them. Keanu read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it carefully and put it in his desk drawer. He'd received awards over the years, trophies, plaques, recognition for his acting work. He'd given acceptance speeches and posed for photos. None of that meant as much as this letter, because Margaret Rodriguez didn't care that he was famous. She cared that he'd made her life a little bit better, that he'd stood up for people like her. That was the only award that really mattered. 2 years later, the changes at Pacific Trust Bank had become industry news. Other banks started copying their policies, eliminating VIP programs, training staff on unconscious bias, focusing on satisfaction over volume. Some did it because they genuinely cared. Others did it because Pacific Trust's success forced them to compete. Either way, it was working. Keanu still visited branches randomly, still wore his old hoodie and jeans, still tested whether the changes had stuck. Most of the time he was treated well. Occasionally he'd find a problem, a teller who was rude, a manager who made assumptions. When that happened, Catherine got a phone call, and that employee got a choice: change or leave. Most chose to change. One afternoon, Keanu was at the downtown branch making a deposit. While he waited in line, a teenager approached him. "Excuse me, are you Keanu Reeves?" Keanu smiled. "Yes. Can I ask you something?" "Sure." The kid looked nervous. "My economics teacher told us about what happened here, about how you got accused of stealing and kicked out of your own bank. Is that story true?" "It's true." "And you didn't fire everyone?" "I fired the people who deserved it, but I gave the others a chance to be better." The kid thought about this. "Why? I mean, if someone treated me like that, I'd want revenge." Keanu leaned against the wall. "Revenge is easy. It feels good in the moment, but it doesn't actually fix anything. The people I fired would have just gone somewhere else and treated customers the same way. At least this way, some of them learned, some of them changed. That's better than revenge. But what if they didn't change? What if you gave them a chance and they wasted it? Then I'd know I tried, and they'd know they had the opportunity and threw it away. That's on them, not me." The kid nodded slowly. "My teacher said what you did was the hardest kind of leadership, because it would have been easier to just burn everything down." "Your teacher's smart." She also said that real power isn't about punishing people. It's about creating conditions where people can be better than they were. Is that true? Keanu smiled. That's exactly right. The kid thanked him and walked away. Keanu watched him go, thinking about that question. Real power. He'd had power his whole adult life. Fame gave him power. Money gave him power. Owning a bank definitely gave him power. But he'd learned that real power wasn't about any of those things. Real power was choosing how to use the advantages you had. Choosing whether to lift people up or tear them down. Choosing whether to see others as human beings or as obstacles. Richard Porter had power when he was branch manager. He'd used it to make people feel small. Keanu had power as the owner. He'd used it to create change. Same power. Completely different results. The teller called his name. He stepped up to the window, handed over his deposit, and watched as the young woman processed it with a smile. "Thank you so much for your business," she said warmly. "Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "No, thank you. You've been wonderful." "You have a great day." Keanu walked out into the afternoon sun. Traffic was heavy. People rushed past on their way to somewhere important. The city hummed with its usual energy. He pulled out his phone and texted Catherine. "Just left downtown branch. Service was excellent." Her reply came quickly. "Good to hear. Same story at the other locations. I think we actually did it." "We did. Thanks for believing this could work. Thanks for caring enough to try." Keanu pocketed his phone and started walking home. He had a script to read tonight, a new film starting production next month, back to his day job. But as he walked, he thought about what he'd learned over the past 2 years. He'd learned that problems don't fix themselves. You have to be willing to face them head on, even when it's uncomfortable. He'd learned that people can change, but only if they're given the right motivation and support. He'd learned that treating people with dignity isn't complicated. It's actually simple. You just have to care. And he'd learned that being rich or famous or powerful means nothing if you don't use those advantages to make the world a little bit better. Margaret Rodriguez's letter had taught him that. Her chocolate chip cookies, which he'd eaten every last one of, had reminded him why all of this mattered. Not for recognition, not for awards, not even for the satisfaction of knowing he'd won, but for the 73-year-old woman who cried because someone finally treated her with kindness. For the construction worker who no longer felt judged when he walked into a bank. For the single mom who got approved for a loan because someone saw her as a person, not a risk assessment. That was what success looked like. Not stock prices or profit margins or quarterly reports, but people being treated like people. And if Keanu Reeves, with all his money and fame and power, could make that happen in one bank, then maybe others could make it happen in their workplaces, their communities, their daily lives. Maybe judgment based on appearances could become a little less common. Maybe kindness could become a little more normal. Maybe the world could be a little bit better. One interaction at a time, one smile at a time. One person choosing to see another person as a human being, worthy of respect. That was the revolution. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, consistent daily choices to be better. Keanu reached his house and went inside. Tomorrow he'd do it all again, live his life, make his movies, visit his bank, And every time he interacted with another person, he'd remember, everyone deserves respect, not because of what they might secretly be, but because of what they definitely are. Human, just like him.